Okay, thank you. Good morning, everyone. We'll call to order the October 2023 meeting of the Binghamton Traffic Board. It is October 12th, 2023. The first item of business is approval of the minutes from the September meeting. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. We'll move on to our next portion of the meeting, which is the public comment portion. I believe we have a couple of individuals here today to address the board. Whomever wants to come down first, you can come and have a seat at the table here. So if you just press the button on the microphone, that'll turn the light green so we can hear you. And if you could just state your names and address, and you got 5 minutes to address the board.
Yep, I'm Maureen Wilson, Vice President of Pyramid Brokerage. We're located at 84 Court Street.
And Trevor Jones, Pyramid Brokerage as well.
And you're here today for Berwick, correct?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Can you hear? Okay. So we actually represent the current owner of 489 Court Street and 4 Berwick, which is the real estate entity for Midas. And we have a contract that was subject to approval of a change in zoning. There's 2 lots involved in this entity. The first is 489 Court Street, which is the bulk of the property. And the second is 4 Berwick, which is if you will, the rear of the building, a very small lot. And that's what we're actually here to discuss. The buyer was unable to attend this morning, and the broker that represents the buyer was unable to attend, but we had submitted the request for the curb cut, so we felt that we could represent the issue. The issue at hand is, while the property was owned for many years by Midas, they didn't use that rear portion much. And when they did use it, they drove around to access it from through the Visions property next door, which is, of course, obviously not a long-term solution to anybody's need to access their property. There's no current access to that small rear lot behind the building. It's fenced off. So obviously a new buyer is interested in obtaining permission to access the property that they're buying. And the front portion is zoned service commercial, and we had thought the rear was still zoned residential, so we had applied for a change in zoning. But Tito was able to tell us that there actually had been a variance passed at some point in the past to allow for commercial use of the property. But in effect, the property is inaccessible and not usable unless you choose to say that it's fair to access it by driving across the Visions parking lot, which obviously is not governed by any kind of an easement and shouldn't be used. So we're here to ask for a 2-car curb cut and the removal of that fencing. I would suppose a fence with a gate could be installed there, but that's just hypothetical. What we're trying to do is establish independent access and the use of that rear parcel.
Okay.
I do have, I didn't realize that our flyer only had a partial aerial. I can in either direction. It shows the lot, but it doesn't exactly show how it's contiguous to the Visions lot. But the Visions lot forms an L coming off of Court Street and around to Berwick, and then the corner property is the current Midas property with the inaccessible parking in the rear.
Are you able to share the plans for the property, Maureen, with the new buyer?
Am I able to show what?
Share the plans for the
Oh,
property?
yeah, they intend to use it as a repair garage. It's a towing and repair service, but they're not intending to do any towing at the site. They understand that they would have to have a different kind of zoning for that. And in fact, they're in the process of acquiring more property elsewhere that's zoned industrial for the towing impoundment.
So similar to what has been happening there.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, they're retaining some of the equipment that's in there, the lifts and Not sure I can remember what
in
else
the
was.
alignment. The tire line.
Okay,
Just a note that the use variance that allowed commercial use of Fort Berwick Ave did require a fence around the perimeter. Except of course, the area needed to access the lot, so whatever's not part of that drive aisle to get in should remain fenced.
That makes sense. It would really make sense to have the fence continue to be there with a gate to access the lot. I would think that way they can ensure that they're the only ones using it. Yeah, I speak out of turn as far as we haven't discussed this with the buyer, but given that the variance provides that the part that isn't covered by a curb cut needs to be fenced, that would be the logical solution.
I would just say,
sure, Ron.
I believe the buyer actually is intending on putting a fence around the full back lot. To the vision side, just to block off anything they have out there.
Are they gonna store the towed cars back there?
No. they
No,
haven't
it's-
been-
It's not a towing impoundment lot in any sense of the word, and that's not what they're applying for. It's just the lot in the front is very small and can provide access to
So-
cars being brought in. But if there's a delay or a need, you need to wait for parts or anything else and a vehicle needs to be stored overnight, there's really no place to put it.
Are they a repair service also?
That's what it will be.
Because Midas stored most of their cars out front.
I don't know what Midas did. All I know is that there's a lot there which is totally useless because it can't be accessed.
I know that. I visited that site.
Tito, outside of the curb cut, would this require any other approval from planning or elsewise?
No, there's no change of use.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion from the board? Okay, I appreciate it. So, this is top of our agenda, so we'll discuss it further after public comment, but thank you very much.
Okay, then will you let us know, do you need any information for contact?
I believe we have the
Tito, I'm sure has it.
application information, so we should be okay.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Okay, we can take whomever's next for on the public comment portion. If you could just make sure that green light is still on and just state your name and address, please.
You bet. This is still on, yes?
Yes, thank
Okay,
you.
great. My name is Rob Wandell. Most of you know me. I own a Magica at 39 Court Street. We just recently expanded into 37, so we're twice as wide as we used to be. Been doing business in downtown Binghamton for the last 24 years. I'm here with the same thing that I usually am for is parking enforcement. But first off, just the observation, I guess. I came in the other day and there were 3 tickets on cars across the street from my shop that were left by overnight tickets. Because it's a no overnight zone. That's the first time I've seen overnight tickets written in a year at least. So thank you for that. The no overnight thing is really important, although it was on a Saturday, it was on overnight Friday night. So those cars were parked there overnight Friday and were there when I left Saturday at 7 o'clock. So they're supposed to be paying and it's supposed to be a 2-hour zone and there were no other tickets. Now, Casey and Mike used a scanning gun. So those tickets are red. I'm fairly familiar with seeing them out there all the time. So that's why I'm pretty sure that those were overnight tickets. They were there first thing in the morning. But some of those cars were there all day and no additional tickets, which tells me another thing. They're still, as far as I know, I'm sure I'll be corrected if I'm wrong. There is no parking enforcement on Saturdays at all. I do appreciate you letting the memo that went down saying you've got to start enforcing overnight. I think we should do the same thing on Saturday. I am not a restaurant, so my business isn't open late at night. When they want parking, I'm open during the day. And if you want more businesses that are not restaurants downtown, you've got to support that with open parking. So that's That's just one issue. I'm hoping for some Saturday enforcement, especially coming into the Christmas shopping season, which is our big time of year. In the last few years, there's been really no parking enforcement on Black Friday, the day after Thanksgiving, because everybody takes off. And none on Small Business Saturday, which is the following Saturday. And we really need to have parking out there for the store. I mean, we just expanded, which doubles our rent. We need parking for our customers as usual. And I've been fighting this battle for a long time, but I am tenacious and I don't give up. And you can talk to the past 4 administrations if you have any doubts on that. Right. So that's the one thing. The overnight tickets. Right, got that. Shopping season. Just general enforcement down there for that. After I was here last time, it was really a lot better for a couple of weeks. And now it is tapered off to where it is not happening again. They come through once in a while, but it still feels like the old boy network or old girl network where some people just aren't getting tickets. Yesterday, and I was going to bring a whole presentation with pictures and slideshows and arrows and circles and timestamps, but I figure you all know what's going on. The same people, and if not just one, it's a few that own businesses or live downtown, take those spots on Court Street as their personal spots, and every time they're in their business, that's where they're parking. All day, nearly every day. It should be really easy to catch such violations because they're there all day, every day. But what I see is, like yesterday, might come through at noon. The one Mercedes shows up at 12:30. So he missed that. That's his time. She's there all day. Casey comes through at 4:30 and does not write her a ticket. Did she magically pay during the time he was looking? Because it seems unlikely to me. Because you can only buy 2 hours at a time there, and she's there for 6 hours, 7 hours, 8 hours, like 5 or 6 days a week. And the Black Sienna from a Duke Food Mart also parks out there all day, and they just seem to go by them and they don't get tickets most of the time. I mean, I can do a FOIA thing, and if you want me to bring you information on what tickets were written during that time, and the timestamp picture showing you those cars there over and over and over again. I would like that problem to be solved. So basically it's scofflaws, people ignoring the law. And I don't understand why Casey and Mike aren't really angry with the people that are gaming the system and getting away with it over and over and over again. And at times it feels like they're enabling it. I mean, they'll come and they'll park right in front of the shop whose car is across the street. They'll park right there and they'll go up the street on my side over and down, giving her like 20 minutes to notice the cop car. And then she magically has paid during the moments that they're looking. Or they'll scan the car and they'll go into her business and then they'll come out and rescan the car and no tickets written because it's magically paid during the spot checks that the police perform. I know they can't be down there 24/7, but when somebody's parking there 40 hours a week, they don't need to be down there 24/7 to catch them. They know who it is. They know all of the cars down there. And since I'm open for business 50 hours a week, I'm down there on the street all day. And the police know what's going on. Everybody knows what's going on. I don't know what the motive, I don't know what the answer is to fix this problem. How do you get somebody that just refuses to park in the ramp and takes those spots all day, every day to stop doing that? Obviously, writing them one ticket a week isn't doing it. I personally think they should be getting 3 tickets a day. If you're parked there 8 hours, you should get a ticket for not paying because you can't pay for 8 hours, a ticket for over 2 hours. And they should get that a couple of times if they're there for 8 hours. Or somebody should go and talk to them and say, you cannot be parking here. Instead of what they had done is basically gone in there and said, you know, Rob up this street is mad at you because you're parking here. He called and told on you, which is what I get. So I got the owner of that place writing me a 1-star review on Google, telling the world how much I suck, and doing the same on Facebook, basically saying, don't shop there. Why? Because the cops told her that I was the one calling in her. And I never specifically called for her, and I called for general enforcement. And the first time that She got angry with me and came down and yelled at me. It's the day before that, I'd said, well, these are the 3 cars. I didn't know who owned them. I just know that they're there every day, all day. And then I found out who owned them because then she opened my shop and screamed at me. But I mean, that's not police protocol, is it? If I call in a crime, even a light crime like parking, or even if someone is selling heroin out of their shop and I call it in, do they go in and say, Rob said you're selling heroin? Or do they investigate? And if there's no evidence, then they let it go. And if there's evidence, then they charge. I mean, isn't that what the cops are supposed to do?
Let me, if I could speak to a couple of different things here. The first thing is that, and I know you've been down here since, but I'm glad that you noticed the increased enforcement. That was done at the direction of the police chiefs, and it's sort of on, and correct me if I'm wrong, chief, but sort of on an as available basis. We're down almost 30 police officers, so patrols have been directed to ticket as they're able to. That's not always, they're not always available to do that.
Oh, I get that. I get that. And like I was saying before, they're there 6 days a week, 8 hours at a time. They don't need to be there for those 8 hours. They just need to write the tickets when they're there.
Sure. I believe Saturday enforcement is happening. We'll follow up on that and make sure that it
Okay.
is again as possible, with an increased focus around Black Friday and Small Business Saturday.
That would be awesome, because before there was nothing, and everybody knew there was nothing. So the cars that were parked in front of my shop and across the street where my customers were parked there when I opened, and 9 out of 10 of the same cars were there when I closed. So people knew it wasn't going to be enforced, obviously.
Yeah, and my hope is that, I will say our office gets calls from people who have gotten tickets, including business owners down there. So my hope is that the message is getting out that, the parking laws are being enforced.
I hope so. I've been pushing the city for that for a long time. What I really would love to see is something coming from the mayor to, just a public service announcement, not posted somewhere, but actually mailed to all the businesses and building owners saying, as a business owner, don't park here. As an employee, as a business owner, don't let your employees park here. As an owner of a building, don't let your tenants park here all day, every day.
Sure.
I just need parking, and
don't
doubling
think
my rent, I have more people coming in and I need more parking. And the people that shop in my shop are generally there for 45 minutes. So
Sure.
2-hour parking is great for me. Lots of turnover in each spot versus this car being here for 8 hours, not shopping in anybody's shop, and the same car tomorrow and the next day.
Sure. And I think our Office of Economic Development does a lot of that with the businesses that are down there, trying to get the word out. They'll continue to do that, and we'll continue to do increased enforcement as we can. But I appreciate you coming down, especially noting Small Business Saturday and Black Friday.
All right, thank you very much. I have
Thank
one
you,
other
Rob.
point, but it's a very small point.
Sure.
Occasionally the city closes down the streets there for parking, and they'll put up signs that say no parking, temporary police order. I'm hoping that there's some way to get those signs with a little better print on them for the dates and time. They put them up 3 days early, and there's a big thing that says no parking. And then there's like a black crayon that gives you the date that you can't read from your car. You can see the no parking, but you can't see the date and time. So sometimes lots of open parking there, but my customers won't park there during those times when they see the no parking zones. So if it could be clearer, maybe the same font or size as the no parking, written the days it actually applies, it would be helpful. And again, that's like a small thing, but it would be helpful.
Noted. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Mr. Richmond? You could just make sure that green light's on and just state your name and address for the record, please.
Absolutely. Kevin Richmond, 31 Main Street. So good morning, everyone. I want to first thank you for allowing me to speak today regarding the safety concerns outside Binghamton High School. My name is Kevin Richmond, and I'm the proud principal of Binghamton High School. I come discuss a matter of paramount importance, the safety of our students. Our students are the future of our community, and it is our collective responsibility to ensure their well-being as they travel to and from school. I'm here today, as I put an application in, to request your urgent consideration of the implementation of a crosswalk in front of our school and the conversion of Oak Street from Leroy Street to Main Street into a one-way street during school hours. I also want to take this opportunity to thank the sergeant for coming last week to speak with myself and a district administration to be able to walk the property and look at some of the safety concerns that we have. So thank you. The safety concerns we face are pressing, and we must act swiftly to address them. This issue was first addressed on February 9th at this traffic committee of last year, after we had requested help for dismissal. Signage and a crosswalk were discussed. Then on March 9th of last year, the issue was then brought up again by the Broome County Office of Emergency Management, where they discussed the Stop Arm camera program, in which they identified the location outside of Binghamton High School as having the highest amount of violations in the entire county. This alarming statistic underscores the immediate need for improved traffic control and safety measures in the vicinity of our school. We need to act to prevent further injuries. In my 7 years as principal, I've seen many students either hit by cars or almost hit, and it's one of my biggest fears as an educator. Currently, there is no designated crosswalk in front of our school. This lack of a proper crossing area puts our students at risk, as well as staff, as they navigate the busy streets during peak traffic hours. Without a designated crosswalk, students and staff are forced to cross the road without adequate protection, significantly increasing the likelihood of an accident. The area surrounding Binghamton High School experiences heavy traffic congestion, especially during school drop-off and pickup times. This congestion often results in chaotic and hazardous conditions for both pedestrians and drivers. Implementing a one-way street during school hours would promote better traffic management in this critical area. It would also allow for cars to be able to see the buses with high visibility, which may help to reduce the number of stop arm violations. Just yesterday, we had two parents who got out of their cars and were arguing with each other about who had the right of way. Thankfully, it didn't turn into anything more because of the school staff that were present. Recently, I had put high visibility green cones in the street to highlight an area for students to safely cross. Immediately, we saw cars slowing down and actively looking for students. We were then told to immediately remove the cones. At the time, I had no idea that a permit was needed to put the cones in front of the school. While I now understand I was wrong by putting the cones there, I wish there was more communication and cooperation between the various parties to help solve this crucial issue. We do not have a true campus that other schools in the area have. We are surrounded by public streets, and we are doing our best to try to keep our kids safe. We should all be working together to come up with the best possible solution for the safety of our city's children. So that is why I'm here today, to help facilitate a solution where hopefully we all can be on the same page moving forward. I urge this traffic board to take decisive action and implement a crosswalk and a one-way street before more students get hurt or even worse, a fatality. We cannot afford to wait for such a devastating event to prompt change. The safety of our children is at stake, and we must prioritize their well-being above all else. I thank you for your attention to this critical issue, and please, I'd ask you to act swiftly to ensure the safety of all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I see no one else here for our public comment portion of the meeting, so we can move on to the new business section of the agenda. The first item up is 4 Berwick Avenue, which we had presenters on here this morning. Any discussion from the board members, questions or comments on this? This is the requested curb cut for the business on the corner of Court and Berwick. My only thought on this is because there are residential properties on Berwick that face that area where the curb cut is requested. I'd just like to flag this for Councilman Scanlon. If there's no objections from the traffic board, I'd look for a motion to approve today, just on the condition that it's flagged for Councilman Scanlon and he has no objection. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This passes on the condition that it has the approval of Councilman Scanlon. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is Jefferson Avenue. This is a requested review of Jefferson Avenue for speeding issues, and it came at the request, I believe, of Councilwoman Rezanetti at the last meeting, who heard concerns from constituents in the area. So just to refresh everyone's memory, this is a street between West Middle School and Recreation Park. So it sees a lot of foot traffic from students in the area, but also just generally residents, families going to and from the park and walking around the neighborhood. So we had traffic take a look at the area and determined a few things. So the first is that the city is limited in where we can extend the school zone and park speed limits to streets that the park or a park or a school is actually on. So as mentioned, this is right next to both, but in between them. So we're limited in what we can do for in terms of changing the speed limit. But what we're able to do and what traffic is recommending is adding some additional signage alerting drivers to pedestrians in the area. The intersection that's closest to West Middle School is pretty well covered in terms of signage, but there's two intersections where Jefferson intersects with Rotary and Beethoven right by the park that it seems to be lacking any pedestrian crossing signage. So that's, I think the main recommendation is to add some additional signage near those crosswalks. And traffic's also suggested placing the speed trailer on the street as it's available to help sort of alert drivers in the area to slow down there. Sergeant Music, Officer Brown kind of conveyed those to us earlier this week, but did I cover that correctly or was there anything else I missed there?
And I said it before when we met on previous meeting, I know that street gets very busy on dismissals and before school. But I also want to note that during those hours, the really speeding issue is not an issue because there's so many people that are parking there. It gets chaotic. If there is a speeding issue, it's happening before the dismissal hours or after. And then we can probably manage that with our speed trailer. We can put that, definitely the crosswalk on Rotary and Jefferson has no signage of crosswalk whatsoever. The one by Neeland, I think we updated that with last year. We put that signage up. So my recommendation would be to go that way, put extra signage, reflective signage, park the trailer there from time to time. I know it's gonna take away from some parking spots when we put that trailer.
Thank you. Any discussion or questions or comments from the board on this?
I just want to say thank you for looking into that. I hear what you're saying and if we can't put a speed limit change sign on, then to take whatever other steps we can to help that area and make sure that pedestrians are safe. That's the most important thing. So thank you for the recommendations that you make.
Another thing that we can look into, those 10 speed signs that we put, maybe we can start reassigning them to different areas if that's another possibility.
So like the new radar signs? Okay, that's a good thought. Thank you. I think that the intention is to add more of those as we go. So that's it. I agree that should be an area that we flag for the next round. Thank you for that. Any other discussion on this? All right, then I'd look for a motion to add the additional crosswalk signage on Jefferson Avenue with the focus on the intersections of Rotary and Beethoven at the discretion of the traffic division. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item on our agenda is, this is another request for a curb cut, this time at 62 South Washington Street. So this is a building on the corner of South Washington and Stone Street, the dead end block of Stone Street. The applicant is requesting a curb cut behind the building where they have a small parking area at the end of the street. As far as I can tell, this is the building's only off-street parking area. So I think the thought is granting this curb cut and allowing them to access that off-street parking would help, among other things, get cars off the street in the winter and hopefully help with snow removal. Any discussion or questions or comments on this one? Okay, I'd look for a motion to approve the curb cut at 62 South Washington.
Motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Next up, 32 Lords Road. So this is a request to remove the no parking sign near the property and add delayed green light signage to the intersection of Lords and Riverside Drive. So I think we can look at the first part of this request first, which is the request for removal of the no parking sign. Lords Road, almost the entire length of that street is no parking Monday to Friday, 8 AM to 5 PM. This request is only for the signage in front of this address at 30 Lords Road. Our office did receive a call from one resident there that was requesting no changes be made to the on-street parking on that block. And this is right next to the hospital and across from the hospital parking there. So in talking with traffic and some of the other departments, we didn't really see a reason to approve this request, given that the entire length of the block is no parking. And that all of the residences on that block have off-street parking. So at least for this portion of their request, I think we'd be looking to deny at this time unless there's comments or discussion from the board. Okay, I'd look for a motion then to deny the request to remove the no parking signage in front of 30 Lords Road. Is
Motion.
there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the second part of this request deals with the traffic signal at Lords Road and Riverside Drive. This is something that our Department of Public Works is still looking into, specifically the timing of the light there. So I asked that this portion we can leave on the agenda and we can come back to it at the November meeting if any action is needed, but it sounds like it's just might just be an internal issue at this time. So we can move on then to 135 East Frederick Street. This is the Southern Tier Independence Center. This is a request from STIC. It is a 3-part request. They're looking for a few different things. The first is a crosswalk from their building to the parking lot across the street. They're looking to move the no parking here to corner sign on the north side where their building is slightly west to help with visibility issues. And then lastly, they're looking to create a loading zone in front of their building to designate a clear area for deliveries, with the intent being to keep trucks away from where pedestrians are crossing the street from the building to the parking lot. I'm sorry. So traffic did review this and had no real objections to any of the requests. The crosswalk as outlined seems to be a measure to improve pedestrian safety and no real issues determined there. I don't know if any board members have thoughts or discussions on any of these 3 things that STIC is looking at. They are pretty much alone on that block there, and the only organization that really utilizes that, the main organization that utilizes that crossing area between the parking lot and the building. So if no objections or questions or comments, did you have anything, Tito?
Yeah, just for the loading zone, are we looking at putting a sign up there? Is that signage that we usually do, like a commercial loading zone? Okay,
I don't think we've done it in the past, but it's gonna be fun.
okay. Just, I guess the details can come later on whether this is a sign or striping, or how it's gonna be executed, but yeah, that's my only question.
Do you know the answer to that, Sergeant or Chief, in the past, how we've done that?
I think the designated commercial loading zones are specifically downtown. They're marked by city posted signage. I don't know if Sign Shop made those previously. And then there is road striping to indicate like on State Street, some of the areas where the commercial trucks curbside for unloading and delivery. So I think it's handled or was historically by Sign Shop and DPW.
And be signage and striping on the pavement.
Yes.
Okay. Any objections to that portion of the request? I think if it accommodates the organization there, we didn't see any issues with it. Okay, I would look for a motion to approve these requests, the crosswalk, the moving of the no parking here to corner sign, and the creation of a loading zone as outlined by the applicant. Is there a motion?
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, our next item on the agenda is Oak Street and the area around Binghamton High School. This is what Mr. Richmond, who spoke to during public comment today, and part of an ongoing review of the area involving multiple agencies and departments. As Mr. Richmond stated, if you can recall a few months ago, Broome County Emergency Services came here and presented to the traffic board specifically regarding their school bus stop arm program in the area around the high school. They've since followed up with some recommendations to improve safety in the area. And the first recommendation is additional high visibility signage, either replacing or supplementing existing school zone signs on Oak and on Oak Street between Main and Seminary. So one of the issues that we're running into with this signage is that it's not MUTCD compliant. So we simply want the approval of Corporation Council to ensure that if we place these signs as an additional safety measure to hopefully improve pedestrian safety in the area, it doesn't create any additional liability for the city as we sort of continue to look at that area and how we can improve safety there. The Office of Emergency Services also talked to us about potentially a raised crosswalk on Oak Street from the new entrance directly across the street to the sidewalk. That office is looking for funding to support that crosswalk from the health department. So we'll wait to hear from them on that. I think traffic has been out there too, kind of reviewing the signage and seeing if there's anything that can be done. It's my understanding, Sergeant, that all of the signage that I guess that we have everything that is MUTCD compliant to help with pedestrian safety is kind of already in place at that area based on the traffic review.
Yes, we already updated 2 months ago, or something like that. We went through, added I believe three new signs, updated update the existing ones to the new standard.
The additional signage that the Office of Emergency Services is recommending is what they brought up earlier. Like I said, this is not, not compliant and not with the, I guess, is it the DOT guidelines that typically?
It's the federal guidelines and the state has the similar guidelines with that. And so I had made that suggestion before they get put up that we just check with Corp Council to make sure that they would be okay with that, because the MUTCD is for guidance so that everything's consistent and you don't put up signs that are the wrong shape and have too much wording on them and things like that, so that everything is standardized. It's not that you can't put up something else. The recommendation is to stay with the standards. So if you were going to do something different, I would check with Corporation Council to make sure you had their okay on that. The other thing I did look into, you talked about the funding with the health department. This week we had a meeting and I went to find out about federal funding possibly for this area through a transportation alternative program that's going out there, and it has safe routes to school. Unfortunately, it has a minimum level of federal funding of 500,000. So the cost would not be anywhere near that amount. So you would not be able to use that funding for it.
Okay, thank you for following up on that.
We could probably make it that high.
Well, you probably could if you put in maybe other areas around the city or something like that. The only problem is that's going to take you a while, and if this is an issue that you want to get solved more quickly, that probably isn't a great way to go.
Any discussion or questions, comments from the board on the councilman?
Yeah, I have a question. All right, pertaining to one other piece of, from, Ms. Richmond this morning, and this was about the street becoming one way, or at least part of it. I would think that there's a lot that goes into something like that, but I'm just wondering, is that under review in any way? What are we doing to look at the feasibility of that happening? And I don't know that he would, but like, where are we with that part? Are we looking into that?
I think that just based on some initial discussions that would have it would seem to have a pretty significant impact on emergency vehicle access and through traffic in that area. So it's something that would require a broader review. The signage and the raised crosswalk are some of the measures that we can implement more quickly. I think we would be looking to advance those first and see the impact, study the impact that those safety measures would have on the area. Is my understanding of that correct? Sergeant? Okay. Chief?
Yeah, in regards to the signage, I think that can only improve pedestrian safety or safety around the school. Specific to the raised crosswalk, if you're going to introduce a crosswalk mid-block, not at a corner, I think, and it may have been looked at, but you probably need to take a hard look at your sight lines regarding legal parking on the west side of Oak Street. It'd be my opinion, you'd have to remove several spots, both north and south of the raised crosswalk, to have proper visibility for any students or pedestrians that are crossing there. So they'd be visible from approaching traffic in either direction. It's a narrow street, so your distance in which pedestrians would be introduced to that crosswalk would affect the driver's reaction time. So proper sight lines and clear visibility. You would lose on-street parking, which I realize is secondary to safety concerns, but it's going to have to be reviewed and part of your end plan or proposal here.
Thank you.
Megan, one more thing that we did discuss the other day was possibly funneling if we put a crosswalk students to that by putting up some type of fencing or so that you couldn't just cross wherever you wanted along there, like along the sidewalk along Binghamton High School. And get funneled to that one location.
Yes, Officer Brown seemed to think that in the past there had been a handrail or a guardrail that sort of funneled students from crossing, not just kind of anywhere they wanted to on the street. Even if we put up this crosswalk, how do we encourage students to cross where they are supposed to and where it's safest for them too? So that's one of the things that we had discussed.
I would think that we might want to look at the one-way traffic because most schools, when we design them, we design for drop-offs for the buses and parent drop-off. You have none of that here. You're right on street. And if it were maybe north to south, there would be no kids crossing the street. They would get off and go right into the school. But personally, I think that's worth looking at as a huge safety thing.
Thank you. Any further discussion on that? Okay, my thoughts on what we can do today are approve the additional signage to go up on the condition that Corporation Council signs off on it. Continue to review the possibility of a raised crosswalk and wait to hear back from Office of Emergency Services on a partnership and hopefully some funding from the health department on that. And just continue the conversations on improved pedestrian safety over there, whether it be a one-way street or some of the other safety measures that we had discussed. But for today, I would look for a motion to approve the additional signage in partnership with the Office of Emergency Services on the condition that Corporation Council approves. Is there a motion? Second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anything further on that? Okay, Tito, if we can keep that on the agenda for the November meeting, we can revisit it then. Thank you. Okay, moving on to the next portion of the agenda. We have requested a review of the area around Carlisle Apartments, children at play signs at 6 locations surrounding the apartments. If you recall at our last meeting, we had talked about, having DMTS and the traffic division do a comprehensive review of this area. That review, I believe, is ongoing. But at this time, we feel that adding the additional children at play signs are warranted given the locations of the apartment, some of the parking configurations there and the proximity to the park. So it's my thought that at this time we can move forward with installing those, that additional signage, at the recommendation of traffic and BMTS at your discretion. And advance any future pedestrian safety improvements, as that review continues. Any thoughts or discussions on that? Okay, then I would look for a motion to add additional children at play signs in the area around Carlisle Apartments, as determined by the traffic division.
Motion.
There a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And last on the agenda, Family and Children's Society. This is for the crosswalk connecting the properties on Main Street where they are working on the expansion. This has been on our agenda for a bit now, and I'd ask that we keep it on there. This will be part of our Main Street Pedestrian Improvement Project, which is moving forward. City Council has considered legislation for some right-of-way measures that were needed to advance this project, and the hope is that this can move forward in the next few months. So for now, I'd ask that we just keep this on the agenda until the appropriate time. Any discussions on that or any other business for the traffic board today? Yes, Councilwoman.
Is this a good time to bring up a couple things that I'm hearing about? Okay.
Yep.
Just a lot of concerns on the west side regarding speeding. I know you guys were all aware of this, but as I'm out there talking to constituents practically every day, I'm hearing more and more about it. I did promise a couple of folks I would bring this to the attention of this body. First one is the speeding on Park Street. And this is particularly in the area where the intersection of Park and Grand Boulevard. It's Floral, right? And then there's Grand Boulevard and Park Street. And they're making these, turns, high speed. Constituents are concerned. I promise I will bring this to this body and ask for, any thoughts, opinions, or just at least taking a look at it and see if there's anything we can do. And then the other one is not the first time is Leroy Street. It continues to be what people calling, just like a race car track or, just cars speeding without any hesitation. And the most recent incident was a little kid almost got ran over there. There is a turn on Leroy, or a curve, I should say, on the road right after the intersection of Leroy and Neeland. Leroy kind of curves a little bit right before that median starts. And so cars are just coming around that curve, like, without any care. And there are little kids right there. There's a handful of households with little ones that are just outside on the lawn. There's also the median there, or whatever you call it, the island there in the middle of the street. So I don't know how that impacts anything, but I do know that this has been going on for a very long time. And, constituents are asking that we take a look at it again. So those are just the two things I wanted to bring up today. Thank you.
Thanks, Councilwoman. So on Leroy, we talked about that just this week. We had received an application from a resident to take a look at some of the issues. I think they were talking about the area near Helen Street.
Yeah, it's close. I was just talking about one block up, but it's just
Towards
the
Neelands.
whole street is, like I said, cars are just coming through without any consideration of the speed limit or safety, really.
One of the things that we had talked about, or the traffic division had suggested, was at that intersection of Leroy and Helen specifically, adding oversized stop signs, replacing the regular stop signs with oversized stop signs, just as an added measure to make sure that motorists are seeing and abiding by the traffic signage there. And then just doing some additional enforcement as they're able to. So we had talked specifically about Leroy and Helen, but we can ask to include Leroy and Neeland and sort of that broader area as part of it.
Yeah, I think, like I said, the curve there on the road limits visibility. It doesn't really give people the opportunity to see what's coming sometimes, and yeah, I don't know how we'll be able to address that, but I think it's definitely worth taking a look at and see what we can come up with. Thank you.
Anything else from any board members on this or otherwise? Okay, I'd look for a motion to adjourn then.
Motion?
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
I
We are adjourned.